All right, Friday forecast time. 2 3-0 schools and 2 ranked teams will meet on Friday night here in Lincoln. It's Nebraska and Illinois. Before we get into the Illini, I want to put a bow on UNI. What was your big takeaway from Saturday night? Well,
just that Nebraska had a plan. They played a lot of guys. They got some of the work done they needed to get done without really working up much of a sweat. But I think on the other side of it, there were some issues and things that came out of it that Matt Rhule wanted to address. And I think Matt Rhule liked that his players recognized that a lot of guys were not happy with the yards after contact allowed and just the way that Northern Iowa maybe got a downhill push at times on the black shirt defense.
Certainly a good test as Illinois comes to town. They're going to be a physical football team. But one of the things that jumped out, at least early in the week, was the status of Micah Mazuka. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, Micah Mazuka will be out again, Nebraska's starting right guard, arguably as talented as any of their starting 5 linemen. This is not an injury thing. Matt Rhule said it's between him and Micah at this point, but out another week. So we'll see where that goes from here. But in this place, Henry Latoski will get the start. He started last week. Had a solid performance against Northern Iowa. You go back to the start of the year and what this means. There were 7 linemen on this roster that had starting experience at the Big Ten or SEC level. Now there are just 5 available, and they're all 5 starting for the Huskers with Henry or Teddy Prohaska and now Micah Mazuka both out.
Well, and they've done a decent job in protecting Dylan Raiola. What's your take on him? His first 3 games have been pretty darn good.
Yeah, from a pass protection standpoint, the grade that Nebraska's line received against Northern Iowa was the highest pass protection grade in the history of the Pro Football Focus grading service, which dates back to 2013. They did not allow a sack. In fact, the line has not allowed a sack that they've been charged all year. They've allowed a few hurries, 1 quarterback hit. There was only 1 hurry on Dylan Raiola, and he was able to avoid that and step up and make that beautiful throw down the field. So you can't really be critical at all, especially with what they're doing in pass protection. And Northern Iowa did bring pressure last week. It wasn't like it was a 4-man deal. They were bringing 5 and 6 people, and that line did a great job of holding up.
And Dylan doing a great job spreading the ball around. He's getting a lot of receivers involved.
Yeah, the number of receivers and backs that have taken carries and caught passes for the Huskers, it's as high as you're going to see. And they have gotten so many different players in these games early on. I think now is the point, especially starting this week, Andy, where you've got to tighten up those playing rotations as far as who you play and kind of what you do. And we kind of saw that against Colorado. The receiver rotation was basically 6 guys. The running back rotation was more or less 2 backs. I think the question this week, would Emmett Johnson get himself in that group with Dante Dowdell and Ramir Johnson? All 3 have played pretty well so far.
Emmett had that nice run at the end of the game against UNI. Let's talk about Illinois. You know, they've got a couple of receivers, this Pat Bryant kid and Zachary Franklin. Bryant, for one, has 4 touchdown receptions already through 3 games. It's going to be a good test for the Blackshirts, who've given up just 20 points in 3 games.
Yeah, it's really an amazing stat when you look at the points per game number where Nebraska's at, and that to me is the stat. You know, you can get caught up in yards and other things, but points per game is the one that really matters, and they've been outstanding in that area. I think the key for Illinois is, can Nebraska make them one-dimensional? Luke Altmaier has been slippery as a runner, kind of like what they saw last week against Northern Iowa. He's got about 75, 80 yards rushing on design run plays and scrambles in those first 3 games. So he will have the ability to kind of extend drives for them. And they get a lot of yards after contact. So the Blackshirts will be tested again, but it's going to be a great game as well for those corners and those back-end players in the secondary.
We did not see Jamari Butler last Saturday against UNI, but we should see them Friday night, right?
Yeah, Jamari Butler could have played last week against Northern Iowa. Chose to hold him out. It allowed them to get more players playing time. Keona Davis, one of those real benefactors. We even saw Dylan Parrott out there. That is the one thing. When you look at Matt Rhule and how he builds a program, he builds a program. He gives so many more younger players opportunities. On this defense right now, Andy, there are 28 different guys that have seen over 20 snaps of play.
Big deal, too, on Friday night. They're going to celebrate the 400th consecutive sellout at Memorial Stadium, a streak that dates back to 1962. And you can say Friday Night Football, you can have your opinion on that, but they're going to have the stage pretty much to themselves nationally.
Yeah, I think this really works out well in a lot of respects. I get it. It's tough on the high school football community and the fan bases that travel. But this is a special night. You get it at night. You get it on national television. And I think we've learned that these night games, they're hot tickets. I mean, go look at the Northern Iowa game. You tell me another team in the country that would pack it in like we saw for Nebraska against Northern Iowa. Not many. And this is going to be a similar deal. You can already see it in the ticket market. There are no cheap tickets to go to these Nebraska games anymore. So there is a demand. I think a lot of people want to be there, especially for that fourth quarter light show, how big that's become. And the drones were grounded last week, but I do expect the drones to be out. There was evidently some frequency issues. They better get the airwaves cleared because we want to see a big drone show on Friday.
I think they're going to straighten it out because it's going to be a big one. It's the first game featuring 2 ranked teams here in Lincoln in 10 years. It's Nebraska, it's Illinois, it's Friday night, 7 o'clock kick. It's on Fox.